Welcome everybody. Here we are Tuesday night, July 9th, Fairfield Business Park for our regular weekly meeting of Golden Speakers Toastmasters. This is my first time to stand here as president, so you may have to help me through. As they say, any major dude could have done it. I think I'll mention before I forget, it'd be a good idea if we put our phones on silent or stun, so there's not any disruptions during the meeting. The last thing I'm going to do before I invite up the Toastmaster is to read the mission of a Toastmasters Club. The mission of a Toastmasters Club is to provide a mutually supportive and positive learning environment in which every member has the opportunity to develop oral communication and leadership skills, which in turn foster self-confidence and personal growth. Let's hear it for the mission. What do we call it? We started a little late, so let's get rolling. I'm going to invite up our Toastmaster for the evening. Oh, that's right. We're happy to welcome a guest tonight. Why don't you stand and just give us a quick idea of why you came.
My name is Sultan. I teach at the university. I teach Marcia Ayurveda online, as I was just telling you. And my career goal, my dream is to speak on a stage, to teach on a stage, not in the classroom and not on the online classroom. I have a lot of experience in public speaking years ago. Somewhere along the line, I completely forgot how to do it. So I've heard wonderful things about the Fairfield chapter of Toastmaster, and so here I am.
It would be a great place to and you can give your TED Talks. And,
Thanks.
Great. I'm going to invite up Jyoti to be our Toastmaster for tonight.
Thank you.
Is David a guest? Or?
Another guest.
Oh, now that we're guests.
No, I'm sorry, David does not qualify as a guest anymore. He turned in his application
Oh,
and
yes.
his fee.
All right.
Remember. Glad to
And
have
we
you.
have some arrivals, important ones.
Fellow Toastmasters guests and viewers at home. I'm your Toastmaster tonight. My role is to introduce the role player of the day and keep the meeting moving for rolling on. Let me first introduce the role player of the day. Before that, I would like to introduce the theme of the day, theme of the meeting, lazy summer days. This is the theme. Here is one quotation. Rest is not idleness, and to lie sometimes on the grass, on the trees on a summer's day, listening to the murmur of the water, or watching the clouds float across the sky is by no means a waste of time. It's too vague for me. Anyway,
You made it.
I made it. So let me introduce the role player of the day. I am your Toastmaster. My name is Jyotiraj, and today timer is Peter Armstrong. Peter, will you tell what you'll do as a timer, please?
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, viewers at home, guests, honored guest, one guest. As timer, my job is to, I can get the official paper out, but I'll wing it instead, is to keep the meeting running well by allowing the people who are speaking to know how much time they have left. And this is done by turning on 3 colored lights. Green means you're doing great, but the end is coming. Yellow means you've got a little time left. Red means you've used your official time and you have 30 seconds to wrap it up. For the different types of speeches tonight, the speaker tonight, which is Jean, the green light will come on at 10 minutes, the red at 12 minutes, 30 seconds. Yellow, excuse me. You want all the time, obviously. And the red light will come on at 15 minutes rather. For our table topics section, The speeches are 1 to 2 minutes. The green light comes on at 1, the yellow at 1.5 minutes, and the red at 2-minute mark. And then there's 30 seconds to finish up if necessary. It's allowable to finish up anytime after the green light comes on. Evaluations, 2 to 3 minutes. Green is 2 minutes, yellow is 2 minutes, 30 seconds, red is 3 minutes. I
And
will present a report at the end of the
table
meeting.
topics.
I just mentioned the
Oh,
table
you did.
topics
Okay.
is 1, 1.5, and 2.
Mhm.
And that's.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Carmen Anticona is our grammarian today. Carmen, will you describe your role?
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, honorable guests, viewers at home. I am the grammarian today, so I'm gonna keep track of incorrect use and good use of language and words. Today's word is coprolalia. It is the uncontrolled use of obscene language.
Never heard of
Me neither. An example of that is that Tourette syndrome, characterized by chronic tics, is associated with coprolalia.
If you're the grammarian, you have to be able to say it.
Say it again. Uncontrolled
Leon?
use of.
I think it's coprolalia.
Caprol.
Coprolalia.
What's those last two words there?
Caprol.
Coprolalia.
It's
Obscene language.
caprol. Anyway.
Uncontrolled
Okay.
use of
Obscene language.
obscene language.
4-letter words.
Yeah. Or,
And I will give my report at the end of the meeting.
Thank you. Our next role player is Art Atkinson. He is our R counter. Art, will you please tell us about your role?
Thank you. By special dispensation, I will speak seated. My role as odd counter is to listen for use of what we call filler words, sounds that don't really convey any information. Usually what they do is they cover up an uncomfortable silence, uncomfortable because we're in the habit of filling the sound into those spaces. Examples would be like, you know, so, but. The word and used to string sentences together that should be separate sentences. Tongue clicks, false starts, and other personal favorites that I'll identify if there are any. And I'll give a brief report at the end of the meeting.
Our general evaluator is Aaron Russell. We'll hear from him later in the meeting. Our greeter, Joke Master, we'll hear a joke from Carmen later in the meeting. Let's keep meeting moving on. So this is the time for our prepared speech. So let me call upon the stage Hudayfa Satwani to introduce, what do I say now?
Give me objectives.
Okay, so to give the objectives of Jean's speech.
Good evening, excuse me. Our speaker tonight is Jean Symington Craig. She's giving, I think this is the first speech in the after the icebreaker.
No, it's just, it's the old Toastmaster program,
It's
it's an
something
educational module. Yeah, I'll explain it.
I'm a good evaluator.
We didn't get it.
Yeah, this is an educational module speech. She will teach us, including me as an evaluator, how to evaluate like professional. I do not know exactly what she will tell me more than what I know about the evaluation form. So I will hand the meeting again to the Toastmaster to introduce her, and then you'll hear back from me later.
Thank you.
Toastmasters, it's great pleasure to introduce Jean Symington Craig. Jean Symington Craig has been a Toastmaster since 2006 and is a distinguished Toastmaster, DTM. This is a very distinguished position. She is an 8-year member of the Conscious Communicator Toastmaster of Fort Madison, and serves as the club liaison for the members with Toastmaster International. She also belongs to Golden Speakers Toastmaster in Fairfield. This is where we are standing, where she has served as a president in various officer positions, including her current position of Vice President of Education. Jean has one husband. There he's standing. Dan, also Toastmaster, and 2 dogs, Porter and Aubrey, who are not. They live happily in Fairfield. Jean will be doing an education presentation from the Successful Club series, loosely formatted around the Evaluate to Motivate module. The Successful Club series consists of 10 presentations on various topics to help members build and enjoy a successful club and club experience. Learning how to evaluate is key for supporting fellow members and developing important skills. The title of her speech is How to Evaluate Like a Pro. You know you want it. Please help me warmly welcome Jean Symington Craig.
I actually could use an assistant.
Okay,
She needs a Sherpa.
Okay, here we go.
okay, you want me to flip the pages?
Yeah, I'll just sort of look at you
Yeah,
and
right.
we'll go from there. Okay. It's here.
Nice pen.
Just to note, I will be standing close here because we want to make this be an accessible video for future reference. So I'm not going to go way over here so that our cameraman doesn't know who to follow. Normally he'd follow me, but I want to keep it over here. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, honored guest, and viewers at home. How to evaluate like a pro. You know you want it. How many of you have been evaluated before? Great. How many of you have evaluated someone else? When you're asked to be an evaluator, do you ever feel like you don't know exactly what you're doing? This talk is for you. Toastmasters International says that evaluation is the foundation for successful club interactions and member growth in Toastmasters. So that's what we're going to look at. The definition of evaluation is to determine the value or the nature, the character, or the quality of something or someone. In Toastmasters, there are 2 purposes to evaluation. There are 2 key goals. One is to give the speaker very valuable feedback on what he did well, what he could possibly do to improve, and how to do that. So that's this first section. And the second one is to leave the speaker feeling very uplifted and encouraged to get up and try it again. Go ahead. No, I was helping, I should.
No, let me do it.
All right, good. So, right off, we're going to say important note number 1. This is the evaluator's opinion. As a speaker, you can listen to your evaluator and apply what seems to be useful. Pay attention though if you start getting comments from a number of evaluators on the same thing, because that probably means that's really something that you ought to address. No, I'm tempted to.
Yeah, just do that one.
There are 3 main parts. This keeps it really simple. 3 main parts to evaluation. What are the objectives, or the target. How did the speaker, or where did the speaker meet the objectives? Where did the speaker not meet the objectives, and what would be suggestions to help that speaker meet those objectives in the future? Suspense, here it comes, next one. Ta-da, you can see I'm not an artist, but this is my thought. You know those old-timey mallets in the carnival game, and you go, and you roll up your sleeves, and and the puck goes flying up the track, and it hits the bell. Ding! My image of that is, that's where you've met the objective. Action and hit the target. You could also put in a lot of effort and not hit the bell. So that to me is the objective is not met. And what the evaluator is going to do is help the speaker close that gap. So that's what we want to do. We want to get it so it's dinging either by the speaker, or the speaker understands how to make the bell ding. So the first part, where can the objectives be found? In our old projects, we had manuals, and the objectives were found at the front of the project. In Pathways now, we find a purpose section at the front of a project in an evaluation resource, and we understand that's what the objective is. So we know what the speaker is trying to accomplish. Also at the back, in the manual, at the back, there are questions that by answering those questions, you are answering whether the speaker met the objectives and how. In the Pathways program, there are evaluation resources, and there are also questions that help you address the objectives and whether the speaker met them. It's helpful if, and I'm going to check with Toastmasters on this, particularly with the Pathways, but obviously the more you know about the project that your speaker is attempting, the better you can evaluate. All right. Main part 2. So first off, where did the speaker meet the objectives? Where did he get the ding? Again, answering questions in the resources, evaluation resources, or in the manual will help you give that kind of feedback. But the more skilled and better approach to evaluation is you want to get very specific. You want to give specifics and demonstrations to show that you listened closely and watched closely. So this could be specific types of phrases, it could be commenting on order of organization, it could be demonstrating gestures and vocal variety and staging that you did. Okay, I'm not going to go too far. This is what's important. So that's what's key is the specifics. I'm going to give so let's flip over. Okay, important note number 2. Don't just repeat the content. Have a purpose. Don't get up and just say, and then he said, and then he said, and then he said, because the audience was there and the audience heard that. Use content to illustrate a comment that you're making about a specific objective. An example would be the way you broke your speech into the 3 main parts of what you did before you went to the concert, what you did at the concert, and then what you did after the concert showed good organization to me. That would be if your objective was organizing your speech. If your objective was developing vocal variety, you might, as an evaluator, say, the story about your brother really allowed you to create a lot of vocal variety, particularly loud and softer. What were you doing? Or, Dad is going to kill you. So you've given examples and you're showing content, but in relationship to an objective. All right, now this is probably the most important. Where did the speaker not meet the objectives? Puck only went up halfway, there's a gap. Again, you're going to use the back of the manual or the Pathways evaluation resource to indicate where you felt there was a problem. And you want to state that. Here's where I think there was some room for improvement. And then you're going to give suggestions on how to close that gap for your speaker. You can give examples and ideas and demonstrations. Again, be very specific so that your speaker really understands, oh, that's what I could have done and that's what I could do if I give this speech again in the future. Okay. Okay. Wait, put that back there a second. So I want to give an example of that. Rather than saying, I think your conclusion was weak, could have been a little stronger, be specific and say, your speech was really well organized, your opening was really engaging, but I think your conclusion could have been stronger if you had summarized the 3 points that you laid out in the body of your speech at the end, and then gave the audience a call to action. You see how you've helped your speaker understand how to make a stronger conclusion? Another example would be, instead of just saying, I liked your gestures, be specific. Say, you had a lot of gestures in your middle area of your body, which was good. I think that you could enhance your speech even more by getting bigger with your gestures and moving out like that, and show your speaker what you're talking about. Okay. Important note number 3, never whitewash. Whitewash, oh, you know, it was such a good speech. Everything was great. I loved it. I can't think of a single thing to change. You are fantastic. That's whitewashing. Okay. It doesn't help your speaker. There's always something that can be suggested for improvement. There's 2 kinds I like to put. One that's a little more important is something that is obviously missing from the speech and needs to be added. So that's the gap that needs to be added. Point those out. But it could also be that the person really did a pretty good job, no obvious glaring gaps. And you can suggest something to consider if they give that speech in the future to add. So maybe there's a backstory. The story about how your brother did this thing 6 weeks ago that led up to this event that happened. Always keeping in mind that the speaker has already made decisions on what to leave in and what to leave out, because we're all under time. So they may not be able to add that extra piece. But it gives you some value as an evaluator to do that. Wait. You'll actually learn more about evaluating, those of us that have been in Toastmasters for a little while, the more projects that you actually do. You know, you get your toes in there and you start to realize, oh, okay, I get what's being said now. You want to just work your evaluator muscles to help your speaker. Very important. Tones and phrases. We want to be kind, we want to be respectful, we want to be encouraging. Okay, so a lot of times the better phrases to use are ones that are I statements, such as, I was moved by how you introduced your dog to show that compassion theme that you had. Or, if you were to do this project again in the future, I would suggest. Or, in my opinion, you could in the future do it this way. You see how very respectful that is, and just it's all on me? What you don't want to have are harsh statements, accusatory statements, often they're you statements. Now, you were just wrong to do, or your failure, is that a filler word? Your failure to introduce context was glaring. Your mistake was in doing this rather than that. Or even, how could you, Aaron, have done that? Given the project, I mean, so and your speakers can't talk back to you. So it's a delicate situation, and they're a little delicate after they've given a speech. So like I say, speakers are vulnerable after they give a speech. Be kind, be nourishing. We want them to get back up, okay? All right, benefits of evaluation. For the speaker, the benefit is that you're gonna get valuable feedback. Where you got a ding, where you have a gap, how to close it, And they're also going to feel motivated and encouraged to get up and try it again, which is what we're all doing for each other. For the evaluator, you're going to have a really good mental workout, helping your fellow Toastmaster. It's a skill set that's very valuable, evaluation. There are other places in life, there are other places in life where evaluation is used. So evaluation applied beyond Toastmasters. This is really common. You start with some stated objectives, or there's a standard that's in place. And then you compare the standard or objective with the actual performance, whatever it was. Determine where the standard was met, determine where the standard was not met, and then perceive and recommend specific actions to perform to move the standard not met to standard met. It's a skill set that develops with practice, very valuable for your toolbox. A little crunchy here. Most important, evaluation is service and support. You're supporting your fellow members to help grow and become better, and you're using your heart and mind. Heart to guide your speaker, mind to guide your speaker, and heart to really uplift and encourage their emotions around getting up to speak again. It's service, it's giving back, it's making a difference, and it feels really good. Evaluating like a pro. It's skill building, it's satisfying, it's rewarding. Of course you want it.
Timer, will you please time 2 minutes to evaluate the speaker? We have this evaluation sheet
Let's give
for
one to,
guests also. Come once again to our meeting. I'd like to call our general evaluator, Aaron Russell, to take over the meeting from here.
I'd like to call up Kodaifa to get his evaluation of Jean Symington Craig's speech.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters, our guests, viewers at home, and our Vice President, not President anymore. Thank you for this great speech. To evaluate here, I'll go through the evaluation form provided by more expert evaluators. How effective was the speaker introduction in helping the audience understand the purpose of the successful club series and the presentation itself? Actually, it was great. She asked a couple of questions in the beginning, then that helped her defining her target listeners. Then, was the presenter prepared? It's actually more than prepared. She mastered this topic. How heavily did the presenter rely on notes? I don't think she used notes, it's very rarely, but that's by nature. When she looks here, she has notes. How did the speaker use vocal variety to enhance this presentation? First of all, her voice was very clear for everyone. I was sitting in the back. Second thing, she used that several times, and I will mention that later, but for an instant, when she said not, da 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 da, all these changes in the voice. And when she said about the child, she said, "What are you doing?" And then she said, "That will kill you." It's like the opera. Ha 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 ha. what other techniques did the speaker use to personalize and augment the presentation? Actually, she used the gestures in very professional way. All the time. It's not only about hands, even with the body, when she moves her body, and then when she explained how the evaluator, me, she told me how to use them now, how to use that to show she did that. So I'm doing that based on what she told me to do. Did the speaker display the visuals smoothly and in appropriate time? I think that's good, but maybe you need to prepare that with Dee before the meeting, so he will know when to move the paper or the card. What aspects the speaker presentation style did you find unique? Actually, the way when she showed the examples, she has the right example for everything, and when she showed the example, she saw the example with all its related things like a voice or gestures or etc. Did the speaker present the material clearly and simply to the audience? Yes, and I myself learned from that. What could the speaker have done differently to make the presentation more effective? I think if she just dedicate 1, 2, 3 minutes for giving a couple of tips about other members when they write this evaluation, because many of us, we do not know what actually write in the personal evaluation other than the professional evaluation. Finally, what did you like about the presentation? I liked everything, and I learned many things, and I used a couple of these tips in my evaluation. Thank you very much. And Toastmasters July. Thank you.
Thank you, Hidayat. Mr. Timer? Correct? Is that nice? Which speakers qualified? Or is
The
this
speaker qualified,
Speaker.
Okay.
and the evaluator did not qualify.
Now we do table topics?
Yeah.
I'd like to call up Dan Craig, to our table topics master for tonight, to fill us in on our table topics.
Put the camera on wide here. We're going to do something totally different tonight. Everybody needs to stand, please.
Uh-oh.
I draw a hat. Okay, we're going to pass the hat. Take one of the slips of paper and hang on to it and give the hat to the next person.
Guests have the option to play or not
Oh,
play.
no, guests have to play.
They have to play.
It's pretty easy.
They're
It's
encouraged.
fun.
I can play.
Nobody knows what they're doing on this anyway, so.
Now I need one volunteer to be the timer. What we're going to do in this section tonight is what we call a round robin. Usually our table topics is a session where somebody has questions or quotes. They call a volunteer up, they give it to them, and they have to respond for 1 or 2 minutes. What we're doing tonight is completely different. We're not going to do that. We're going to have just a round robin, like a continuing story.
Oh,
We're gonna
great.
need a timer, okay.
This will be fun.
And I need a timer who's going to give everybody 30 seconds. So here's the way it'll work. I'm going to start, I'm going to do a 30-second section of a story, and then it's going to go clockwise around. And you're going to continue my story. And the slip of paper is a color that you have to incorporate in your section. As soon as the timer says, who is the timer?
I'll be the timer.
All right, seems
Already in
obvious.
the timer.
As soon as it says time, you're done. You have to stop on that word and it goes to the next person. Any questions?
I have to think that, and when it's your turn, your very first word you're supposed to say is your color, so we can
No.
be looking for it.
No, you just
No.
use the color.
Not the way I'm organizing it.
Use the
Just
color,
you-
use the color
But
in
how
the
do you know
topic.
if you've
So you're
used it
just-
or not? How does everybody know if you've used your color?
Hey, listen.
It's the honors.
So you just use the color or the word
Once-
in the conversation.
Yes,
Okay,
Yeah,
that's simple.
one more question.
That makes
So
it more
you use-
fun.
How many minutes you speak, like
30 seconds.
30 seconds, 30 seconds. So you have to incorporate that color in your
30
speech somewhere.
seconds.
Yeah.
Once
Right.
or
You have to
twice.
do it pretty quick.
Right.
30
Yeah.
seconds.
Yeah,
is
better
not a
do it right
lot of
away.
And
time.
no segueing, you gotta keep on the track here, yeah.
So Jean is obviously suggesting that you get it out there quick. Our theme tonight is lazy summer days. My story is about a walk that I took. Are you beginning, Mr.
Yes.
Turner? Okay. A walk that I took on a lazy summer day. I was outside. The sun was just about to set. The light was turning to beautiful gold. And as I looked there into the western sky at that wonderful sunset, I thought to myself, if only I could share this with someone else, then everything would be absolutely
Time.
perfect.
And I was thinking about my girlfriend, how we used to lay down on the grass. Go just lay on the grass and look up at the blue sky and watch the sun rotate back down and disappear in the sky. And then the next thing we knew, it was 4 a.m. because we both fell asleep.
But
Is
now,
Time.
Is that time?
Cool.
but now I'm in a different phase of life, focused more on my personal health and the health of my parents who are staying at a hospital surrounded constantly by doctors in white coats, well-meaning and loving and taking care of them. Oh, how I miss my girlfriend.
Time.
And I go to work every day wearing a pinstripe blue suit, working for a boss who hates my absolute guts. And I'm a slave to the grind. I go home, I don't know what day it is half the time. I've got this dog that craps on the floor every single night, still going through potty training. It is the absolute worst way for a bachelor to live his life. Oh, how I wish some days that I just fall into a hole.
Peter, you should join in.
Here you go, here's the color. That's what was
I'll
left over.
make up a color.
Okay.
And as I think about these things and the course that my life has taken, I don't feel blue, I don't feel gray, I feel kind of chartreuse. And the way it makes me feel is it's just like the sky is chartreuse and everything else is, and I just can't take it anymore. Time.
And then I'm dressed in a very nice yellow dress with a yellow hat and a yellow purse, and also my shoes are matching with the yellow. It was quite a different day because everyone was yellow, and also the sunshine was yellow. But at the same time, it was kind of rainy.
So I'm just lying on my porch thinking about that green frog that Aaron so delightfully told us before tonight's topic, where he seemed to be obsessed with coprolalia, all kinds of bad words being used in Toastmasters. But nevertheless, I look up in the blue sky and think, I'm glad that I am just unavailable for working. Time.
Actually, it was not a green frog. It was something worse than that. I don't know if it's a red mouse or something similar to that. I just saw it very quickly running from side to side in the room. I tried to catch it because I knew that it's that creature who destroyed my clothes last week.
One thing that I'm really afraid of is the mouse. Okay, so I always make sure that I keep my food in the refrigerator, and this refrigerator is silver color. Okay, and I feel silver color is very lucky for me. Earlier I had a red color car, and that car almost like every week I used to have an accident, but that was gratefully in India, so I didn't have to worry about my insurance. But when I came down here, someone said white is a lucky.
So this car attracted a lot of attention from the law enforcement officials because of its bright orange color. I had heard that fire engine red sports cars always pulled in more tickets from the police, but my experience was that an orange car did at least the same kind of attracting attention.
Time.
Okay, so we talk about a lot of cars, and I also like to ride car, but I love to ride elephant, which is great. And there's a place in Nepal where we ride elephant, and there's a jungle, it's a safari where you ride elephants and do hunting. But still, I mean, it's not that developed, but you can ride on that gray elephant and cross the rivers and the elephant. It's very nice to ride like this.
Until you get to Night of Darkness, where the forest is basically black. And black includes all colors, so it's very auspicious that I am doing black here. Personally, I think we can really get into being black and use a lot of this coprolalia at the same time, because black is, it's solid, it's where it's at.
Okay, quickly hand your slips of paper to your right. I'll take that and do it again. Right.
Do it again, okay, here we
Yeah.
go.
We're shifting our colors here.
Oh,
So hand them.
Yes.
you give it.
Everybody should get a new color.
Okay.
Keep the new.
I give it to him.
Keep the new.
There's one there.
Who didn't pass it?
Here, I'll give it to you.
Oh,
I got two.
You got two,
I
so.
didn't get one.
Who doesn't have one?
There.
Okay.
Take one from Art.
Take one from
Oh.
Art. This is the randomness of life. Okay.
All right, one more round.
So the elephant.
No,
It's
no,
me.
wait.
Oh,
Forget the elephant.
Well, maybe we should go this way.
Ran down the street and just generally, and they were revving their engines the whole time. I tell you, it was exactly noisy time.
And as I began to watch this spectacle take place through the black of the night, I began to question myself, why these aliens had landed on Earth in the first place to simply wreak havoc upon this planet that they knew nothing about. What kind of malicious intent were these aliens planning for this planet that had more or less done nothing to them personally? Well, I really didn't want to associate myself with creatures such as this. So I simply stood on my porch.
Time.
and holding on to the blue gem I found under one of the lava rocks, I looked deep inside and I found a great magic counter to the vermilion and green colored situations. And the aliens started to raise an eyebrow, wondering what to do about this magical man with a magical blue sapphire.
And as we end this journey,
Is it time? Yeah.
as we
Not
end this
quite,
journey,
but all right.
journey,
Sorry.
Yeah, it's good, it's good.
as we end this journey, we see Gandalf, Frodo, and Bilbo walking off into the sunset, into a yellow sun. As they disappear, they get smaller and smaller and smaller. They're no longer hobbits. They're no longer 3 feet tall. They're actually miniature people. They're walking off into the sunset and they disappear into infinity.
Time.
That concludes the exercise. There are different ways to do table topics, so occasionally it's fun to do something a little different.
Do you want these little bags?
Oh, yes, those are very important.
Okay, half.
At this point, I think it's gonna be time for our reports. We're not gonna do an evaluation of the round robin.
So Jean's
Oh,
off the hook.
there's a lot of disappointment.
You don't have to evaluate.
gosh.
Let me call Aaron Russell back up to get the reports from the role players.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. Our first general evaluation for tonight is our timer, Mr. Peter Armstrong. Would you give us the timer's report?
Our speaker tonight spoke for 13 minutes and 50 seconds out of a possible 15. Our evaluator, Hudaifa, spoke 4 minutes, 5 seconds, but gave a very thorough evaluation. And the timer refuses to quote the times for the individual table topic speakers because he doesn't have a clue.
Next, we have our grammarian, Carmen Antacona. Would you give us the grammarian report?
So, the use of today's word were used by Jean and Beda. Thank you. And I also noticed a couple of phrases that I like it. From Jean, from your speech, you can see I'm not an artist, but this is my thought. And then you get the picture that you draw. I like that one. And never be whitewashed. Sometimes I am whitewashed. And also there is a correction. In one of the papers over there, you put evaluation applied beyond Toastmasters. It should be applied.
Oh, I left something out.
Yeah, so you, there was a mistake, I know you write it.
I was on my knees, hands and knees, trying to do all of those things, and my back was unbelievable. I was like, get me out of this, please.
I
have to
understand.
finish.
It's okay.
I was hallucinating by the time I got home.
Hudaifa, a couple of notes from you. When you said that if Jean used notes, and you said it's pretty obvious because this is a big note, right? Because of the paper. And yeah, it's pretty obvious. So I think that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Carmen. Next, we have our counter, Mr. Art Atkinson.
Tonight was remarkably clear. Jyoti said twice. Peter was clean. Carmen said use so, one and. Hudaifa, one Jean, one and one. Which I chose to mark down in the
Well,
pillar.
thank you.
Aaron was clean, Dan was clean, and I fell down on the job during table topics, and I can't tell what happened. But it was colorful.
Thank you, Art. Finally, we have our joke master for the night, Carmen. who will serenade us with a joke.
Is it the same?
I'm gonna be disappointed if it's not.
Let's see. How much room is needed for a fungi to grow? As much room as possible. Why are hairdressers never late for work?
Why?
Hairdressers.
Why are hairdressers never late for
You
work?
have to cut the
She's never
time.
late for work.
Because they know all the shortcuts. And this one says, it was a baby mosquito's first day to fly out from home. When the mosquito came back home later that day, the father mosquito asked, "How was your journey?" The baby mosquito replied, "It went great. Everyone was clapping for me."
Thank you, Carmen. Well, I think we had a great meeting to start off the new Toastmasters season. I don't know what the rest of you think. A very have a new member joining us. We have a guest joining us as well, and we, fresh off of the Fairfield Art Walk that we did last week, where we had a pretty good showing out there. An interesting take on the table topics this week. Great speech from Jean. All around, a very great way to start off the season. Hudaifa tonight was Jean's evaluator for her speech. It's kind of meta to evaluate a speech, evaluate an evaluation about evaluating, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
But I'll try my best. Hudaifa mastered all the basics. He went through the objectives of Jean's speech and basically evaluated her against those objectives and made sure to call out each one individually. I felt he made great use of the stage. I was very pleased that he did not confine himself to the pulpit, but instead almost was a little more hands-free. He had his notes with him, but he walked around. I really noticed that a lot, and I thought it added a lot to his evaluation, more character, more personality to it that I really appreciated. I also noticed that, as per Jean told us in her speech, when he was giving feedback to Jean, he used the word "I think" or "I feel," and that it was, as you state, it was his own personal opinion, especially when he was giving critical feedback that she could use to improve. That he made sure to note the fact that it was his opinion rather than a fact that she needs to change these things to make her speech better, which I thought was, it softened the blow a little bit and made it more up to Jean's discretion whether or not she uses his notes. You gave great examples of many of the things that Jean did properly, especially, I can remember specifically talking about her vocal variety, where you actually almost mimicked her a little bit in her use of vocal variety, which I thought was rather amusing, but definitely still also gave us a great way to see, oh, okay, that particular moment where I went through those highs and lows, that's something that Jean could use to know specific moments of the speech that she did well. As far as things that could be improved, I felt that you spent a lot of time reading the objective verbatim. I think maybe if you had more just summarized what the objective was and made it a part of your evaluation, I think particularly with the fact that you went over time, I think that would maybe shorten the speech a little bit. For example, instead of just reading each single line item of the evaluation, you could more say, as per the evaluation, she did, master her topic and she showed mastery of her topic through these following things that she did, if that makes sense. And on that note too, when you mentioned that she had mastered her topic, I didn't see any supporting bullets on that, and that was rather early in the speech. That you simply stated that she mastered her topic and didn't really explain why that was. I would have liked to hear some more reasons as to how you thought she mastered it. I also felt you could have had a little more movement. You did use the stage a bit, but maybe even using it a little bit more, especially because we do have a large crowd here. Everyone can see your beautiful face. And yeah, those are all my points for Hudaicha's speech. Thank you.
Now this is the time for award. Where is that ribbon? I didn't get that ribbon. No ribbon.
We don't have any ribbons. We've got one speaker,
I'll give ribbon to you.
and we don't have a best table topics or a best evaluator either. So
Yeah.
tonight we just don't have ribbons.
Okay, but we'll acknowledge you.
I probably have one at home.
So Jean is
You can, I
the
still can come
qualifier and the winner of the
Yeah.
Make a quilt out of it.
Thank
Thank you. That was a great speech. Yeah.
I did this speech for the prison club that I go to in Fort Madison. They do not have internet access, no computers can go in. So you may have wondered why I was down there on my hands and knees doing this as opposed to PowerPoint. Well, this is old school style, and that's why I have it like this. And this easel is from the library. You can rent an easel.
Really?
Yeah, so this is how it used to be done before computers were done.
That's the library
Thank
here,
you. That's the library here.
not in Fort Madison.
No, not in Fort Madison.
Okay, now it's a time to close the meeting. I want to welcome our president again
Okay.
to the stage.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Art, you have a question?
I think we could generate an award for Carmen for producing the most dramatic change of scene in the whole of 2 seconds.
Yeah, I was trying to catch
The
some
lowest done for the
connections.
Iowa
Some of
tabletop
these connections.
Yeah.
We were looking at a rock and then all of a sudden a UFO landed.
Yeah.
Liven things up.
Yeah.
Okay, good job. I'm going to ask Sultan to just stand and tell us one thing you liked about the meeting, please.
Yeah, it's funny you asked me to do that because I noticed that everybody's role is acknowledged and respected really nicely by everybody. And I assume we rotate roles.
Yes.
And I had no idea what I was getting into coming, so it's nice to see that structure. And I can see how it creates a kind of, I can see the bigger picture even though I still don't really understand what's going on, but it looks really good.
We'd be happy to have you come back as much as you want. If you're thinking you're about ready to think about membership, there's the Vice President of Membership, Aaron, right there. You can talk to him afterward.
I'll talk to you after.
We had a meeting of the executive committee tonight, the officers meeting, and we've got 2 points that we need to run by everybody. One is regarding the art walk. We had a kind of a tent and a table there with some handouts and a computer playing videos. We thought it went pretty well, and the consensus of the group of us was that we should try it again in the September art walk. It won't be quite so hot, and we're going to probably get a better space on the square. Any discussion about that? I just wanted to see if everybody thought that was a good idea. It seems like good exposure. We can do handouts. Veda.
I don't know if this was a typical art walk, maybe being after 4th of July, especially early on, it seemed very empty. However, I don't think it's probably as necessary to start as early as we did. People don't really get out into the square. Maybe we could set up at 6 o'clock or something like that.
I think we have to be set up by 6,
Well, maybe it
but
could be,
we don't have to staff it until we're ready.
Yeah.
yeah,
so
but
that's
we were
about-
like setting up at 5, and, I mean, that was good, but
Yeah,
And there was,
not,
like,
not
nobody there.
necessary, yeah.
so.
Okay,
So 5:30, set up at 5:30 then, you suggest?
Yeah, maybe.
we'll think about the logistics a little more. But is there a motion that we try this again?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I so
Yes.
moved.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, how about a second? Second. Everybody in favor of doing it again in September, raise your hand. Good.
What day will that be?
September
Friday.
6th,
Friday,
Friday,
it'll be a
September
Friday.
6th. So it's already past the holiday. The weather will be a little cooler. I think we'll have a much bigger turnout at
People are
that time.
back from vacation.
I'm gonna call that a passed motion. The last thing is regarding the officers' training that's happening Saturday in Washington. It's called TLI, Toastmaster Leadership Institute. We want all of our officers to go. It's important for us to get trained, learn our roles, and anybody else who is interested is free to attend also. You don't have to be an officer. There's some interesting stuff about having a good, strong club. You get to network a bit with people from other clubs and learn informally and formally. So who are officers in the room right now? And are all those officers able to go Saturday? It's gonna, registration is between 9 and 9:30. We're gonna carpool from the old Telegroup building, Highway 1 and
Whatever that road is.
185th, I think it is. We're gonna meet at 8:40, and we'll get there in plenty of time. They're gonna have some breakfast burritos there,
Yeah, the food.
and then things will start at 9:30. I believe it runs till 1. There's gonna be an optional lunch at Cafe Dodici, which is right next door to the place we're going to be meeting. So I'm glad all of the officers are gonna come. We'll check with Janet and make sure if she can come too. And anybody else, of course, is welcome. Anything else?
I
Jean?
just wanted to ask, because Aaron just went to district, and maybe just a couple words on your experience of mingling with people outside of the club, Toastmasters outside of the club.
Yeah, and I think
Value of it.
I think this is something I said before, but it's, I mean, the club level is only the tip of the iceberg as far as Toastmasters goes, and unfortunately, it's the part that not unfortunately, but it's the part that people see the most. But my experience going to the district competition, I went there for the competition, but in the end, I felt that the competition was only small potatoes compared to what I learned there and networking. I mean, these are the people that all make it happen. You know, I mean, you got Teresa Michelson, who's our newly inducted district director, and she's wonderful to talk to. I mean, I recommend that everyone that goes talk to her because she's great and very knowledgeable on Toastmasters. I think she's been doing it since she was 18.
Wow.
And it's a really great experience to be able to mingle with people that are at the district level and see that Toastmasters is much more than between these four walls. So, is that what you're wanting to hear?
Yeah, exactly, and this is gonna be our Division Z Toastmaster Leadership
Oh,
Institute,
right,
so
right.
it has people coming from, Division Z is kinda all up and down the eastern side of Iowa, so there'll be a lot of people there that we never get a chance to see and that will have traveled to get there, and we get to go they're doing it in Washington, so it's just 30 minutes away, which is awesome.
So I don't know if Teresa would be there then.
She probably will, she was
Oh,
there
she will,
last year,
okay.
she.
Last year at the training in Washington, all the district officers were there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
we'll
so
see.
it's nice.
All right, we've reached the end of our time, unless there's anything else. I'm gonna call that the end of the meeting. Thanks for coming. Help clean up.
Also, please see me me about speeches. We are now in speech collecting mode.